welcome back to Oscar Mike Radio for this special series of Veterans Unchained 3.0. I have and have had some amazing conversations, and today is no different as I welcome my former Oscar Mike Radio guest, former collaborator in other projects, the glue behind this one, an Air Force veteran, Sheila Farr. Sheila, welcome. How are you doing?
Hey, Travis, thanks so much for having me. I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here. I love this project.
This has been a great one, right?
Yeah, it
Now,
really has.
you're
The whole,
not writing it, but you're actually like the glue, just putting it all together. So I can't
would
wait to
say
learn all
that,
about it.
but thank you for saying that. Appreciate it.
So people are curious and people want to know, like, how did you and Gina meet, come together, and start working together?
So it's really kind of neat. We met through another veteran. I think she and Brandy Miles were working together in some capacity with a coaching organization called Coachville. And so here in my community, I was doing a couple of things with Brandy for veterans, just offering some classes, job training, job assistance, those sorts of things. And honestly, I think that's how we connected. And then we started writing together, and the rest is history.
And what a history it's been. Number one came out, Veterans United
Right.
uh, came out in 2022, and now going up to Veterans Day in a couple of days. 3.0 will launch with 11 authors, an amazing forward. It's been an amazing project, and you get to kind of you didn't write it, but you get to put it together and see all the parts. And how's that feel to you to get to do that?
I mean, it's really great. So, and what's been really neat to watch is the books, even though the themes and the concept is the same, the stories are very different. The authors, some of the authors are the same. We've kind of stayed with it, but it's really neat to see it progress and to honestly just see the relationships develop from collaborative writing of this sort. So for me, that's been the really cool thing to watch.
So just for all of us out there, I say that you're like the glue, but what do you actually do? What's your function with regards to this? Because I can't keep up with you.
So for this particular project, I am formatting the story. So what that means is I physically am taking the stories once they've been edited and arranging them into a format to make a book, to actually publish the book, and then we'll publish through Gina, but I'll actually be pushing the buttons to make all those things happen.
So that's the
But I
secrets.
push Gina's buttons, not to say that.
Well, maybe so, maybe so. She is as we both known her for quite some time, and it has been awesome seeing, this infusion of energy and passion into this project to make this work. And she won, it launched on Veterans Day and is being launched on Veterans Day. That's no accident. That's a lot of work. What's the plan you have to make that happen? Because I'm thinking like we started talking about this just in the concept like 10, 11 months ago. And then like what, 6 months ago, it got really serious.
Mhm.
And then from like late July till now, it has been a full like blitz, if you will.
It has
How,
been. That's a good word.
how do you plan to do this when it gets ready to launch? Because people don't understand how that works.
Yeah, so I really start with the end in mind. So if our launch date is Veterans Day, that means I start my clock there and work backwards to make sure that we meet certain deadlines. So stories have to be in by a particular date, formatting has to be done, everything has to be uploaded, advertising has to be in place and ready to go at certain points. So really just starting with the end in mind and working toward where we are, and just making sure we meet those deadlines.
Well, and you've got like 11 great authors, people who really, got into themselves to make this. I'm just curious, sometimes people think you got to write a whole book yourself, but isn't this anthology a really good way that maybe you're not sure if you want to write, or maybe you want to tell your story, but oh my God, it's 80,000 words, but okay, I can handle like 2,000, 3,000 words. Isn't this a good way to kind of jump in the not so deep end?
really is. And I love it. I've been doing it, I guess, since 2000, 2000, maybe 2000. I've been doing collaborative anthologies about a whole lot of different topics. And I love it for that purpose because we all have a story to tell. But sometimes, like you said, looking at that 80 to 100,000 word book, you know, all on our own is a little bit daunting. But getting it out a chapter at a time is very manageable and very fun. And like I said, you forge some beautiful relationships along the way, and you never know where it's going to take you. And you never know who you're going to meet that you can collaborate with on other projects. So that's what I try to do when people come to me and become part of our anthologies. Everybody wants to write, but I always ask them why. What do you want to do with it? Don't just write it and let it sit on a shelf. Like use your book in your work, in your ministry, in your advocacy. Come to it with a intention, if you will, because that way you make a larger impact, and we really can impact other people's lives in a very positive way if we are brave enough and courageous enough to just be a little bit vulnerable and a little bit transparent. And I think coming with those components to an anthology is a whole lot easier than laying your life out on the line for everybody to see.
Well, we had people do that in this project. And the last one was, my I wouldn't say it's my first one, it wasn't my first one, but first one working with Gina in this regard. And it went very well. And it's been amazing the response that I got to it. But looking at this one, like you could tell these people who joined this project weren't doing it for a marketing ploy or something to add to their social media CV or resume. These are like real stories where they really went inside themselves and got vulnerable. And so I'm curious, you're kind of on the outside looking in, you're putting it together. But what's that do to you as you read? You have to read these stories, right?
Absolutely.
What does that
And
do
it's
to you
really,
when you're reading them?
I'm telling you, it's neat. And again, I know that I keep going back to the transformation through the process of the three volumes, but it's because the stories are so very different. They do impact you differently. So the first one was really, here's my story about my military service. The second one was, here are some lessons I learned while I was in there. And then this particular volume is, here's how I was transformed through that process of being in the military. And now that I've been out a while and look back, here's what I see. Here's how far I've come. So it's really a cool thing to see. And I always love about anthologies how the concept is the same. You know, everybody's writing one concept, but the perspectives and the stories are all so very different. And even so, like you'll notice in this one, there are a lot of people that went through some things in the military, right? And then you have people like me that just kind of skated in and this is cool, this is neat, this is a great kind of thing, and not everybody had that military experience like I did. So for me, it's really neat to read those other stories and say, wow, it in my mind, it takes me to a deeper level because it makes me think, not to get political, but getting political for a second, how can people not appreciate the people that do these things, that make these sacrifices, because it's big and people don't realize it, I think, a lot of times. So for me, has been the coolest part is just the reinforcement of the patriotism and the just the awareness of the sacrifices that people make to do some really big things.
It's a really interesting ecosystem that Gina has created, and you can see the ripples, or as she calls it, the points of light, expand across, you know, your area, her area, and the country. It almost seems like this is needed. I mean, there's plenty of veterans who write books. There's thousands of books released on Amazon every day, but I don't think there's anybody doing it quite like this. And a lot of people are apprehensive about writing their story. But after seeing this work like this for so long, what's your advice to somebody who says, you know what, maybe no one's going to care about my military story? There's thousands of stories anyway. Why add mine? What do you say to someone like that, Sheila?
Yeah, no, I would say your story does matter. Everybody's story matters. I know that from writing for this period of time and writing about such a varied array of topics, I can definitely tell you we all often feel a little bit like we're the only one. Like nobody's ever been through this, nobody's ever experienced this. Um, and while people may not have walked in your shoes particularly, they have walked along the same path. So knowing that there's somebody else in the world that has been through something similar and understands and gets it, and can either just high five you and say, dude, I've been there. I know what it feels like. Or take you by the hand and say, I've been there. Let me give you a little bit of guidance. Just knowing that there are others that can be that for you and that you can be that for somebody else, to me, that's huge. I mean, that's a big deal to me. So I would say, yes, your story does matter. And yes, your time in service matters. And yes, everything about you matters. And it matters for a whole lot of different reasons. But what I have seen is it matters because there's somebody else out in the world who's struggling, who's waiting for you to come along and share that story so you can be that beacon of light, like Gina says, to that next person. So it matters because we all have something inside of us that somebody else in the world needs. So don't sit on it. Get it out. Share it. That's our duty, I think, is to reach back and bring the person behind us along with us or up to us. So yeah.
Well, one thing that just comes to mind is, you served and you're a female veteran, a woman veteran. It seems that you would want to have more women tell their stories of their service. And, just like for men, it's very varied from service to branch to MOS to time that you served. But
Right.
don't we need the women perspective on military service now more than ever?
Um, we do, and we need to. And it's funny, veterans are a funny lot, aren't we?
Yeah, we
Because
are.
it's like we always feel like we always, well, I can't say always, that's a big bucket to fill, but frequently, often, we feel like it is no big deal. And like I know so many veterans who are reluctant to like when there's veteran appreciation things going on, they're reluctant to stand up and say, yes, I serve. They're reluctant to do those sorts of things because they feel like their service or their time is insignificant. And I think females, and particularly uh, females like me who served in the reserve, who are like, yeah, I wasn't really there. I didn't really go to combat. I didn't do all the things. So I feel like there are so many more people who have a bigger, more important story. But you know what? Everything matters. And yeah, for females, it matters. Um, yeah, I think it matters for a lot of reasons. Oh my gosh, that we can't get into in this little time that we're sitting here speaking together today. But I think it's important because what I see happening is families in relationships kind of diminishing their connection to tradition and service and things like that. So for me, I think it's very important for that reason. Share your stories about your service with your family, with your nieces, with your nephews, with your friends, with your friends' friends, because I think we don't do that a lot anymore. And especially for that reason, I think it's important because um, young ladies need to know that there are a ton of options for them out there if they choose to go that route.
Well, I would have liked to had more perspective around the Women's Army Corps when they got started and how the first set of women Marines got started, and we didn't have that. I think about, World War One and all those nurses and, military professionals who served during that time, who saw the war from a very different light
Right.
than someone on the front line. They're fixing the people that are broken, right? And
Mhm.
so I just and I think about how much has been lost. We've lost so much that I think you're truly right. Every story counts. Every story counts. Um, this is just the whole writing thing. It's just a small, I shouldn't say small, but to me, it's just a small sliver of who Sheila Farr is. There's a whole lot to you. Like when you're not doing this, Sheila, what else are you doing?
Let's see. So when I'm not writing, uh, gosh, I guess professionally, I work in the community as HR consultant and business strategist for small businesses, entrepreneurs, and of course, veterans. I love doing connecting dots for our veterans here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, just helping them stay actively and happily employed. So that's one thing I do. Love firearms and shooting, so I do that as well. Um, and gardening, tai chi, and yoga, all kinds of fun stuff. I love just having a good time these days. If it's fun and it's happening, I'm going to be there. So
Well, I got a question about my freedom flinger after we get done talking, but let's go
sure.
back to Gulfport, Mississippi. A very interesting spot in the country that some people know about, and
Mhm.
I get told, "Hey, don't tell everybody. It's a jewel. We don't want people to know."
Yep.
But what is it about Gulfport that really, people love, want to stay there and live? And why is it so good for business, Sheila?
Well, so people love it and want to live here because nobody knows about it, and it is. It's beautiful. I mean, there's everything here. It's close to everything. You're right between Mobile and New Orleans. You can get to anywhere quickly. Um, if you, no matter what you like to do, whether you're an outdoors type person, there's outdoor sports types things. There's cultural things, of course. There's tons of history around. It's absolutely gorgeous here. So if you're a naturalist, if hiking and things like that are your thing, there's definitely that here. So there's a little bit of everything. And from a commerce perspective, because they're just bouncing back, I say just, but it's been 20 years, right, since Katrina
Right?
devastated this area. But we're just getting healthy, right? We're just feeling healthy. The really cool thing about, especially, so the Biloxi and Gulfport area, and even Ocean Springs, which is kind of makes up the majority of this Mississippi Gulf Coast, um, is the sense of community is really strong here. And I'm sure it's because they weathered so many storms, literally and figuratively together. Um, but when you go through tough times together, it makes you stronger. Right. So there's a really strong sense of community here. And there are, from a social services perspective, because I work with a lot of different nonprofits here on the Gulf Coast, um, they all support each other. So, and in business, not a, it's not a culture of collaboration. It's a culture of, it's a culture of collaboration, not competition, is what I'm trying to
Oh,
say.
really? Okay.
Got that backwards. So yeah, so everybody really just works hard to help each other and to connect dots and just to lift the whole region up. So it's really a cool thing to see.
It looks absolutely beautiful. The
It does.
coastline looks absolutely beautiful, and I can
Yes,
see why. Shh, don't tell anybody.
that's right.
Um, how does the area support veterans? I'm curious because it seems like if you're a veteran-owned business or you have a nonprofit or you are serving veterans in that area, the people, the state, the municipalities are going to support you as well. Am I right in thinking that?
And there's an Air Force base here, and there's a CB base here, and there's an Air National Guard base here as well. So, and we're really close to Pensacola, which is another large, base. So, the community really does support the military, active and retirees. Um, they're the heart of the organization here on the Gulf Coast as far as business is concerned. And even within our chambers of commerce here on the coast, there is an emphasis on the military community. So it's business and then it's military community. Now, where we struggle and where our challenges are is there are so many resources and everybody does their own thing. It's hard to tie all those organizations together to make the impact even larger. So we kind of have talked about maybe making a separate Veterans Business Alliance here on the Gulf Coast, just where we can be like the hub for everybody, where everybody's still doing their own different um, service or activity or function, but that everybody knows where the resources are. Because sometimes and that's what still boggles my mind. As many resources as there are, people still have a hard time connecting with the resources that can help them. So, how do we do better at doing that? And I think it's just, talking to each other like we all try to do, and just making sure that we are working in a spirit of collaboration instead of competition, because that's where we're going to make the biggest change and the biggest impact.
Let's go back to the book. When people read this book that is launching on Veterans
Mhm.
Day, what and you've seen all the stories, you put them together. What would be your desire to have people get from the book as they read it, Sheila?
Um, just like we've been talking about, that their story matters, that stories matter, that what you do in life matters, that it's important to talk about things and to share things.
So, last couple of questions here.
Yeah.
We've done 1.0, 2.0, and now 3.0 is here. What do you think about the idea that, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, the way Gina's going, we could be to 10.0 very easily.
Quick.
Are you along for the ride, Sheila?
Look, when we started the first one, I said, Gina, you know what we could do? We could do spouses, we could do kids of, we could do supporters of, we could do friends of. Yeah, I'm there for it, of course. These have been incredibly impactful. And I'll tell you, even in my place, I have a training center here on the Gulf Coast. And in my training center, I have like a little mini bookstore now, because I found myself referring everybody, oh, you need to get this book about this, whenever we would do different sorts of training. And I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool if I just brought a bookstore into the front of my training center? That way they can just go up front and get it. Well, it's really cool because we do teach firearms. And last weekend, yeah, it was last weekend, we had a class going on, and people are coming in, they're browsing through the bookstore and everything. And, a lady comes up and she's like, you're a veteran? I said, I am a veteran. She said, I'm a veteran. And she was like, I was a nurse, in Desert Storm. And she, shared a little bit of her story. And she had volume 1 and volume 2 in her hand. And she said, I can only get one of these. And I said, start with volume 1. And so she did. And while we were in class that day, she was reading that book. And then yesterday, or no, it was Friday, she called me. She was like, okay, I'm coming to get volume 2 on Monday. And I said, okay. And I said, volume 3 is dropping on Veterans Day. So you only have a week to get through it. She said, I am doing it. She said, I'll read this all day long. And she said, I'm getting copies for friends. And I was like, that's great.
That
So
is awesome.
yeah, I mean, so, it makes a difference. And I think people are interested in those stories. And I told her, I said, when you get ready to share yours, let us know, because we got a place for you. So it's great.
Well, and isn't that the whole overreaching goal, vision Gina had was to have a place for someone to tell their story, and
Yeah,
here we are. It's already happening.
that's right.
Sheila, how could people contact you about your work in publishing or your training, or if they're on the Gulf Coast and want some business expertise, how can they get a hold of you?
Everything is right on my website at gulfcoasttraining.org. So super easy to find. Everything's right there under one easy peasy website.
Well, look, I can tell you, Sheila, I've done a couple projects with you, these Veterans Unchained and other ones, and it's always been an amazing experience. I can't wait to see what happens with this one and the future ones, and I'm glad you're on our side.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thank you for everything that you do. You're my hero, so I appreciate you so much.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. Hey, folks, this is a couple days out from number 3, and it's going to be amazing. Sheila, thank you so much for your time. I'm Travis with Oscar Mike Radio, and we are Mission in Flight.